Hey, it's Chris. This is episode 10 of the TheShapedMarketer podcast. And in this episode, since we're now in double digits, I'd like to kind of summarize or compile the content that I've published so far. And I'd like to do this in kind of a tagline of sorts: career, positioning, brand. I think everything rolls up to these three pillars, if you will. And, I think everyone kind of likes the power of three. Episode 1 was an introduction of the Shape Marketer brand and my professional background. And since episodes 2 through 9 have been on various topics: storytelling, positioning, brand, marketing, project management, operations, and such. If you've been listening to this podcast or read along on my website and Substack, you know that I like to present these topics in a fun and interesting way with a layer of storytelling. And I use visuals from my art portfolio. But recently I was thinking, hmm, I wonder if the storytelling, as effective as it might be sometimes, perhaps adds a layer of confusion. So in this episode, I'd like to strip out all of the storytelling and really just present the golden nuggets of each of these core topics and how they roll up to the three pillars of career, positioning, brand. Okay, so the first pillar is career. And what is a career? And what defines your career? Your career is not just a list of jobs or what you've done for employment. It also encompasses your educational, professional, and personal choices that have defined your unique path. Your career is your story, a storyline arc of your entire experience, both professionally and personally. So, naturally, it includes accomplishments and highlights, but also failures and lowlights. It could include who or what inspired you along the way. It could include pivots you've taken and what has resulted. Or your story could be an unwavering direct path. Everyone's path and story will be different. But regardless, your career, especially told as a story, should hit on your areas of expertise, where you specialize, and your differentiated value. Essentially, your entire skill set, both technical hard skills and your people first soft skills. And as with any good story, your career story is rooted in where you came from and how you operate professionally today in the work that you do. Episode 6 of the podcast is called Cohesive Storytelling Chutes and Ladders and has a storyline of playing a Chutes and Ladders board game to uncover your career story. Cohesive is an acronym that I came up with, a framework to make sure you hit on all of the good stuff in your career story. C is for clear. Your career story should declare who you are and what you solve without jargon and fluff. I think clarity is really key here. O is for organized. You are going to tell your story across different touch points, from your resume to perhaps a cover letter, and then especially during introductions and interviews. So keeping your message and all the materials that support it organized so you can distribute it efficiently and effectively, depending on the situation. H is for human. I think it's really important to inject as much humanity as you can in your story. Be real, be yourself, be vulnerable even. Most everyone shows up with a mask, but if you show up without a mask, disarmed and genuine, well, you're really going to stand out that way. E is for expertise. Your career story needs to hit on the areas you are an expert. And if you can show what you do and how you've done it, that's where you position yourself as an expert. S is for specialized. So while your expertise might be more about the breadth of your experience, where you specialize is where you really root in and showcase mastery. You might be able to wear a lot of hats, and that's great. Everyone has generalist experience and skills, but where do you specialize? Like, where do you go deep? I is for inspired. Have you ever been talking with someone and you feel that exchange of energy when someone's excitedly talking about their career pursuits? It's that inspiration and passion in your work that you really need to infuse into your story. V is for valued. I think this one is perhaps the most critical because you can do a great job at rattling off your experiences and say where you specialize, but you need to be able to translate all of that into their benefit. Whoever you are trying to get to hire you, right? You have to make sure they understand how your offering is going to solve their problem. And better yet, how your offering might be the best in the world option at solving their problem, or at least how your offering solves their problem in different ways compared to other alternatives, which might be your competitors in your field, or even just the status quo to them, and them choosing to stay with what they're doing now and not having to make a decision. I think it's always best to keep in mind that the easiest option for folks sometimes is to kick the proverbial can down the road. E is for empathetic. As you know, empathy is our ability as humans to understand and share feelings with others. So, to tell a good career story to someone, it should be tuned in to what their pain points are and how you solve for them. And you can do this by telling stories about how you've used your EQ to solve problems in the past with various roles you've had. This is why we're always asked questions in interviews about telling different situations and how you approach them. They are trying to understand how you go about solving the pains they have or the holes they need filled on their team, for example. So that's the cohesive acronym that you can use to help make sure your story resonates. Because if it resonates with the person you're telling it to, they will likely buy what you're selling. The next pillar is positioning. Positioning is your story translated for the market. It's the ultra short versions of your story to quickly provide context. It's the longer form versions when you need to go into more detail, and it's everything in between. It's all the snippets of your story to help people understand why it matters to them. Good positioning will resonate with them and the situation they are in because it will be clear how your offering will elevate their life. Positioning is what you are leading with in your messaging. It's all the best elements of your career story translated and told to your target audience to give yourself the best opportunity for them to buy what you're selling. Okay, well, how do you determine positioning? It's definitely an intentional exercise to do. But what's good about doing it is it will give you confidence because it's totally reflective of you and what makes your offering special and unique. And that's where you start when you build your positioning. What are your differentiated capabilities? Well, to know what those are, you need to have an understanding of your competition. So that's a little bit of market research you have to do. To know how to position yourself against your competition, you need to know who the competition is. But you will likely find is that what makes you different and unique to the competition is that they don't have the same mix of experiences and expertise and specialization that you do. No one does. You are truly unique, and the way you approach your work is unique. So your position in the market and all of your messaging should be based on how you stand out. Episode 7 of the podcast, titled Creative Positioning Fortune, has a storyline of receiving a fortune teller reading that is based on your 4 key elements that determine your positioning. Earth, which is your journey, all the steps you've taken as threads in your larger map. Fire, your specialization. This is your signature work. It might not be what you do the most, but it's definitely what you do the best when it matters. Air, your expertise. That's all of your coursework, certifications, frameworks you've mastered, methodologies you developed, and systems that you operate. And water, which is your differentiated value. The resonance you create simply by showing up as you. So Each element informs the others, and that's really what positioning is all about. How you ultimately decide to articulate yourself is based on a variety of factors, and those factors all inform each other. And so, as those factors change and evolve, so too will your positioning. I'd recommend doing a positioning exercise every 6 months or so. About twice a year is good. You don't want to do it much more frequently than that because you want to give it some time in the market so you receive some signals. If you're constantly changing your positioning and messaging, it could be hard to test and know what is resonating with your market. So go through an intentional positioning exercise, but stick to it for a time. The last pillar is brand. Brand is all that you do presented to the world. It's your story, it's your offering, it's your messaging, it's your content delivered across all your channels. It's your mission, it's your vision, it's your values, and your propositions. Think about it as your audio and visual identity. And based on that, it's how people feel about you. It's your reputation and your trustability. Your brand can be experienced in a variety of ways. Episode 8 of the podcast, titled Clue to the Messaging Suite, has a storyline that follows the classic board game Clue, where each room you go in is a different message you tell your audience, from the ultra short and concise category of your work to a longer form story that you might tell in an interview setting, and everything in between, such as a tagline, which captures the essence of your brand's identity and purpose in a short, meaningful, and repeatable way, a headline, which sparks more intrigue and might be more specific than a tagline, a one liner, which is kind of a bridge from that intrigue to how you actually help people transform, an elevator pitch, which is the natural and confident way you introduce yourself, what you do, for whom, and why it matters. And this could be a paragraph on a page or how you quickly introduce yourself when meeting someone. And regardless of the length of your message, it should always point back to your brand, which is rooted in what? Your entire experience, your expertise, your specialization, and your differentiated value. So those are my 3 pillars: career, positioning, and brand. The other episodes in the podcast have been on topics more specifically about execution of your brand and continuous improvement, like marketing, project management, and creative operations. Those are some of the earlier episodes. If you are in job search and would like an easy framework to follow to help you land your next role, definitely check out episode 9, titled Job Search Fibonacci Hopscotch, where I lay out 10 logical steps to take. If you would like help with any of this, from developing your career story to going through a positioning exercise to developing your brand message and visual identity, please feel free to message me or put time on my calendar. You can go to calendly.com/TheShapedMarketer to book a call with me. If you prefer a more DIY option, I built a Google form that prompts you to build out your career story and positioning in a self-guided way. I will link to this in the show notes. If you would like to see how other creative professionals are positioning themselves, definitely check out the creative directory I am building, along with my partner Alicia over at Dragon Wings Collective. All right, well, that's a wrap for episode 10. Thanks for listening.